Welcome to my channel. Sit back and listen to the best true crime stories. Let's go.
The McStay family case. The family, as we know, is the cell of society, a brick of the state and the foundation of the nation. But what does society really know about the behind-the-scenes life of this very cell? Who can look into these tenets of relationships to understand the rules and regulations reigning in a family? Who knows what is going on there, behind the closed door of a separate microcosm with its own climate, customs, and faith? They say that a stranger's soul is a dark place. But, curiously enough, sometimes in the union of two people the darkness recedes, and love, capable of illuminating everything around, gives birth to sacrifice, dedication, talent, strength of spirit, and the ability to subdue evil to hope. And sometimes, this darkness only multiplies, doubles, and becomes pitch black. And its fears and doubts multiplied by lies, cowardice, and thirst for profit acquire a grotesque appearance, lead to hopelessness, and give rise to despair. Our greatest enemy is ourselves. Lies, doubt, and fear are what destroy these families. Such unions, like black holes in space, swallow up light and suck their own children into their orbit, depriving them of hope of escape. And like true antimatter, they often go unnoticed by society, hiding somewhere on the fringes of the universe. I'm going to tell you the stories of two families. Families whose lives were different, but whose ends were so terribly similar. Few people knew what was going on in the souls of these people, but maybe the principles they professed led to their deaths, ruthlessly cutting short the lives of their own children. Locked in their own fears and hopes, they consumed themselves, leaving only a mass of questions in this world, taking their riddles and secrets to the next world. At 9:39 a.m., Monday, February 15, 2010, the San Diego County Police Department, a county in Southern California on the Pacific Ocean near the Mexican border, received a call from Michael McStay, a resident of Huntington Beach, California. He complained to police that he had not heard from his older brother Joseph McStay, 40, his wife Summer, 33, and their young children, older son Johnny, 4, and Joseph Jr. 3, for 11 days since February 4th. The man was extremely concerned and claimed that his brother had been out of contact since around the evening of February 4th, his cell phone unavailable and his home phone unanswered. All of this was completely out of character for Joseph McStay, and police went to 3473 Avocado Vista Lane, Fallbrook, California, 92028 to check what might have happened to him. However, at that point, the police patrol officers who arrived on the scene were tasked with simply finding out if everything was okay in the house, not conducting an investigation. No one could have imagined at the time that this story would have a big following. Finding that the house was empty, no one looked in the garage at the time. And having found nothing around the dwelling that could arouse suspicion, the police left, concluding that the family had obviously gone somewhere unknown. This policeman, either a miscalculation or a common human unwillingness to believe in bad things, would later be blamed on the police. Especially since, as it would later turn out, the first policeman who tried to inspect the McStay's house was still the local sheriff of San Diego County. He came to the house of the disappeared family at the request of Michael McStay, and it was February 10th. At that time the sheriff, after going around the building, saw nothing unusual and, as he had no official authorization to do so, did not enter the house. Not satisfied with the sheriff's inspection, Michael himself came to his brother's house on February 13th. The first thing he finds in the backyard are two dogs that belonged to the McStays. This fact in itself was already alarming. In the family lived two dogs named Bear, and Baby Bear, in which the boys Johnny and Joseph did not want sold. Meanwhile, it was obvious that the dogs had been on the street for more than a day. They were dirty and hungry, and there was no explanation for the McStays' act of leaving and abandoning their pets to their fate. Opening one of the windows, Michael made his way into the house, where he found evidence of the owner's hasty departure. There was no direct evidence of a struggle or theft, however, and he had to leave after feeding the dogs and opening the garage door. His intuition told him that something out of the ordinary had happened. After waiting another 2 days, he finally decided to call the San Diego Police Headquarters to report his family missing. In the meantime, a police patrol that visited the McStay's home on February 15th and found nothing suspicious reported the matter to their superiors. The decision was made to wait, hoping that the missing family would soon turn up. But the McStays never showed up. Detective Troy Dougal, who had the case on his desk as a routine check, at first decided to request information regarding the calls made from Joseph and Summer's cell phones. Suddenly, a strange answer would come from the mobile operator that since the late evening of February 4th, Joseph's cell phone had been disconnected. At the same time, Summer's cell phone was still online for about 2 days, receiving calls and text messages, but no outgoing activity. The carrier said that 2 cell phones belonging to Joseph and Summer initially pinged on February 4th on Highway 76 near the town of Bonsall, near the old bridge over the San Luis Rey River, at a point about 11 kilometers west of the McStay's home in Fallbrook. At 8:28 p.m., there was an outgoing call from Joseph McStay's phone to the phone of his business partner, Chase Merritt. However, he was not answered, and shortly thereafter, the missing man's cell phone went completely silent. From Summer's cell phone, the last outgoing call was recorded at 4:42 p.m. on February 4th. Her phone will then receive text messages from her sister and friends until 10:59 a.m. on February 6th, at which point the battery is likely to die. All this time Summer's phone will be pinging somewhere near the bridge in Bonsall. It is from this point on that the investigator will realize that the McStay family story looks very strange and worth pursuing seriously. The first thing he will do is to send a search request for the McStays to all nearby airports, bus and train stations, hotels and hospitals. As early as February 16th, the public will be informed about the disappearance of the 4 people through the media. Family and friends of the McStays will set up a website to report on the case and will offer a $1,000 reward to anyone who provides useful information. The missing McStays will even be searched for using unmanned drones. In the meantime, Dougal gets a warrant to search and check all the McStay family's financial records and sends his subordinates to question the neighbors. They soon report that no one knows anything about the fate of the missing family. But the initial check of financial documents will show that the family McStay, obviously not poor, and before the disappearance of money from bank accounts did not withdraw money. On the main account of the family, opened on Joseph, was about $100,000, and since the day of the disappearance, movements on the bank cards of both spouses were not observed. It will also turn out that the 2-story house with 5 bedrooms in the prestigious neighborhood of Fallbrook was purchased by the McStays in late 2009, just a few months before the disappearance. It cost them $320,000. With the support of a team of experts, on February 19th, Dougal went to search the home, garage, and all areas surrounding the house. Within the first few minutes of the inspection, it would appear that one of the vehicles, a white 1996 Isuzu Trooper SUV registered to Joseph McStay, had also disappeared, while the second family car, a 1999 Dodge, remained parked in the driveway of the house. It appeared as if the white trooper was the one the family had used to leave their home. Requesting information on the fate of the car's movements, Dougal would continue to look around the house, where he would find no direct evidence of an invasion or struggle, but he would discover some rather strange facts that spoke of the hasty departure of the dwelling by its occupants. In the living room, for example, Summer's glasses, without which she could not see well and rarely left the house, were abandoned on the sofa. And on the table were 2 large boxes filled with popcorn. Popcorn was lying on the couch, on the table, and on the floor. Apparently, the McStay kids ate it in front of the TV. In the kitchen, an already rotten banana was tossed on the table, there was a tray of rotten eggs, and a half-cooked packet of popcorn in the microwave. The table lamp, which had apparently originally been on the bedside table in the bedroom, was now lying on the floor of the bathroom, but the closet adjoining the bedroom was the one that raised the most questions. In the middle of it, 2 open suitcases lay on the floor with various items dumped into them. It was as if the McStays had been hastily packing for somewhere, but had abandoned everything halfway through the process. The investigator was surprised that, strangely enough, neither in the dressing room nor in the house itself, he did not find a single woman's purse. Meanwhile, Summer had plenty of clothes. Such a woman would have had several bags for different outfits. Otherwise, the experts couldn't find a single clue in the house that could give the police a clue as to where the whole family of 4 had disappeared to. But at that point, Dougal would decide for himself that the McStays had not left their home willingly. Years of intuition police officer will tell him that the case is not clean. At the same time, while the McStays' house was being searched, Dougal received a message that the missing car Isuzu Trooper was found abandoned by police patrolmen on February 8, that is 4 days after the family disappeared. The car was parked in the parking lot of a shopping center in San Isidro, an area adjacent to the Mexican border. And according to the recollections of security guards, it was abandoned there at approximately 6 p.m. on February 8. In a terrible disappointment for the police, the McStay family and the car were not caught on surveillance cameras in the mall parking lot. At 10 p.m. that evening, the abandoned car would be towed to the local police impound lot in the town of Chula Vista, where Dougal would follow it. At that moment, the detective hoped that with the help of the family car, he could get to the truth and find at least some clues to the fate of the McStays. But unfortunately, that lead would lead nowhere. They'll find baby car seats and toys belonging to Johnny and Joseph Jr. in the car. And in the glove compartment will be medication to control the asthma attacks that Joseph Sr. suffered from his entire life. Abandoned in a crowded parking lot suggested that the McStays had left the car of their own volition, for it was unlikely that anyone would force 2 adults with children in front of other people. But why did Joseph McStay leave in the automobile the medicines he could not do without? And how did the poorly sighted Summer manage without the glasses she needed? The investigation hoped experts would help them figure it out. But, a week later, their verdict would be disappointing. No extra fingerprints would be found in the car, no evidence to shed light on the story of the missing family. However, the location of the abandoned vehicle would lead police to believe that the McStays may have left of their own accord for Mexican territory. Soon, after reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance footage at the border, police would establish the idea that they had found confirmation of this theory. In a 30-second clip released to the public on March 5, 2010, 2 adults, each leading 2 small boys who look like Johnny and Joseph Jr. by the hands, can be seen walking into Mexican territory toward Tijuana around 7 p.m. on February 8 in a crowd. https u2.bevrw223yq6 In this video, the faces of adults and children cannot be seen, and the man cannot be seen at all. The only bright spot against the background of the night street is the light-colored jacket of a dark-haired woman with a dark fur trim on the hood. Under pressure from his superiors and co-workers, Dougal has to come to terms with the decision that the McStay family probably did escape to Mexico. His attempts to get to the bottom of it, bolstered by the doubts of business partner Joseph McStay, will come to nothing. Though that's when the San Diego police should have listened to them. Despite the fact that the family was almost certain to recognize Joseph and Summer on the tape, Charles Merritt, Joseph's business partner, after reviewing the video, claimed that the man's gait on the tape did not match the particular way Joseph walked. He claimed that the missing man walked in a stooped-over manner like a duck. His gait was specific and memorable. The man leading the child across the Mexican border, on the other hand, walks perfectly normally in the video. However, then the departure of the McStay family to Mexico fit into one of the versions put forward by the police. It turned out that Joseph McStay, with a passion for surfing, used to frequent Mexico. From time to time he conducted business there, buying materials for home repairs. Joseph McStay had his own small fountain manufacturing, installation, and maintenance firm. His business partner was 53-year-old Charles Merritt, a man who considered Joseph his closest friend. And, he claimed, their business had been especially booming lately. Orders were plentiful and there was a lot of hard work and money invested in the business. Merritt did not believe that Joseph could just leave his firm, partner, and customers. But, unfortunately, even this information did not change the opinion of the police. It was as if there were no white spots in the history of the McStay family. And this idyllic picture of a virtuous union of two handsome people who love each other did not fit the assumptions about their ties to Mexican drug cartels, gangs of criminals, scams, and forgery. Although Summer and Joseph had their occasional quarrels, where are they not? The general consensus of people who knew the couple was that their home was always fun, loving, and understanding. In addition, after examining one of the computers belonging to the McStays, it became clear that just a few days before his disappearance, January 28, 2010, someone from it was looking for information regarding travel to Mexico and registration of children's passports. That is why McStay's escape to this country was seen by the police as the most realistic option. Visiting Mexico regularly, Joseph could get connections there, and in time he could start making plans to move his family to this country. At the same time, police officials, for some unknown reason, refused to listen to other facts. First, planning a trip to Mexico with two small children, the adults needed money and things. But the money in the account remained untouched and the belongings abandoned in the dressing room. Nor did the abandoned pets fit into this version. After all, it is quite obvious that in this case the dogs were doomed to hunger and cold. In addition, recently, a year before his disappearance, Joseph stopped visiting Mexico, telling acquaintances that it was becoming unsafe there. Would a normal, caring father, which Joseph seemed to be, dare to leave a nice, newly bought new house in America and move his family to a country famous for its high crime rate? And how could Summer agree to live in Mexico if she was afraid to even hire a nanny to look after her children, preferring to do everything around the house herself? These facts raised a lot of doubts. Why buy an expensive new house if the family was planning to move to Mexico? Why didn't the McStays inform anyone close to them about this decision? Why leave a normal job and go to live in a poorer country? And how, after all, were the McStays able to make this decision without taking a penny of money with them? After all, they needed to feed and water their two babies between February 4th and February 8th. They stopped and slept somewhere, fueled their car, and just took a shower. And the workers interviewed at nearby stores, hotels, and gas stations could not recall them at all. To make matters worse, neither Joseph nor Summer was fluent in Spanish. Summer had an expired passport, and the younger boy's birth certificate was in his grandmother's possession. But the San Diego County Police Department's version of the McStay family's departure for Mexico seemed the most logical at the time. And although the investigation continued unabated, it sounded like a missing persons case, not a murder case. For 3 long years, the investigation into the disappearance of the McStay family pretty much stood still. And as it often happens, periodically detectives and relatives from different parts of the world received testimonies, or footage from CCTV cameras, or assurances that someone somewhere saw members of the missing family. But all of them turned out to be empty, sometimes erroneous, and sometimes false. Volunteers pasted and distributed leaflets, searched for bodies in nearby rivers and lakes. In the meantime, the history of the McStay family was growing into myths and legends, rumors and speculation. More and more people wanted to glory in this grief, to gain fame and notoriety for themselves, to attract the sick attention of the crowd, eager to keep their family secrets, but rake dirty hands of others. It became known that Joseph and Summer before the appearance of children lived together for about 2 years, and married only in October 2007, when they had Johnny. And all would be nothing, but some hackers, having hacked into the personal correspondence of the missing McStays, turned their family squabbles and quarrels into public view. And small journalists and scribblers tried to make a scandal out of it. Thus was publicized one of the angry letters sent to Summer in September 2007, Joseph. In it, she, not shy in expressions, blames her husband for the fact that he is prying into her family secrets. Threatening to break up, an ultimatum form forbids to engage in the search for her father. Without knowing the background of the whole situation, just reading this letter, you can conclude that Summer is absolutely unbalanced person who hates her husband. Meanwhile, it turns out that Summer was raised alone by her mother. Between them there is a cult of rejection of Summer's father, who left the family when the woman was still a small child. Joseph, on the other hand, tried to find his wife's father, opened her wounds, and came across a complete rejection of his own act. Can this be condemned? After all, it is worth trying to understand the annoyed Summer, wanting to leave her family skeletons in the old, dusty closet. However, there are those who claim that this letter may be evidence of Summer's involvement in her family's death. She was the one who killed Joseph McStay and her children at the same time. Summer and Joseph's original correspondence, Summer, writing in fall 2007 to Joseph, "Hey, I just finished a long conversation with my mom. She had a lot to say, so I have to get this through your big fat head. Stop whatever it is you are trying to do regarding my dad. You have been asked before, now I have to tell you to please knock it off. We do not want any contact with him. If you keep this up, you're going to up our relationship. I will not forgive you, and I mean it. You're messing with our lives. I want you to stop this bull s now. My family life does not concern you whatsoever. Why, do you keep persisting? When I've already spoken to you about this? What are trying to do? Don't you have your own bull s to worry about? I'm so pissed off that you keep going on about this. In case I wasn't clear before, let it sink in now. Mind your own business and do not try to find my dad. If I should discover that you have ignored this message and keep digging around, I will turn on you. Do you understand? Stay out of my business and worry about your own b. I'm so sick of your nosy ass. You'd better stop or we're over. I'm not going to go through my life with someone who FN opens a can of worms that no one wants just because you want to. I'm so pissed right now. This is B. 15 minutes later, Joseph responds, I must say, this is one of the nastiest emails I ever got, so foul, I can't believe it came from you. Once again blown completely out of proportion, and I thoroughly misunderstood your mom's and your feelings towards your dad. So, definitely hear you loud and clear, will never be brought up again. Wow, I'm deleting your email. It's so harsh and sick. L8 The couple squabbles about Joseph McStay's first marriage, in which the man turned out to have another child, a 17-year-old son, have also hit the press. Hacked correspondence showed that Summer was not always satisfied with the attention and care that Joseph gave his eldest son. She rebuked her husband for spending time in his company 4 days a week, thus, in her opinion, depriving their young sons. However, with a deeper study of this issue, it becomes clear that Joseph had more than good reasons for this. It turns out that his ex-wife married a very dubious type, a man with a heavy criminal record, named Michael McFadden. It turns out that McFadden, 49, who works at the jewelry store, has been prosecuted at least 8 times for a range of violent offenses. His record counts serious bodily injury, domestic violence, burglary, threats of terrorist acts, and even attempted murder. Should Joseph McStay have been worried about his eldest son living in the same house with such a personality? My guess is yes. From an interview given by Joseph's father, Patrick McStay, to CBS News 8, it appears that his son had sent a petition to Child Protective Services months before his disappearance asking them to look into the identity of Michael McFadden. Unfortunately, to date, the contents of this request, as well as the results of the investigation, have not been made public by the police. However, its representatives have repeatedly stated that after considering Michael McFadden as a suspect in the case of the disappearance of the McStay family, they decided that this person was not involved in the case. We can only assume that such unambiguous statements of the police obviously indicate that McFadden had an ironclad alibi for the time of the McStay's disappearance. And no matter how indignant some journalists, for more than 3 years the investigation, albeit quietly, but continued, uncovering facts really strange, which made the life of the family McStay worthy of surprise. Thus, on the basis of archival documents raised by the police, it was found out that Summer during her life 6 times changed her name and surname. Named at birth Virginia Liza Aranda, at different times she preferred to be called Summer Martelli, then Summer Aranda Martelli, then Liza Aranda, Liza Martelli, and Liza Aranda Martelli. Summer's ex-husband, whom she divorced in 1994, claimed to have always known her as Liza. In addition, it was discovered that Summer had illegally managed to correct her age by pretending to be a woman 11 years younger. Thus, at the time of her disappearance, she was not 33, but 44 years old. Later, these facts would seem to find a logical explanation. As Summer's mother will tell, her daughter took the surname of her birth father or stepfather. When the girl was already a teenager, her mother married a second time, or combined them. Her mother learned about the change of age from the detectives, saying that she did not see any connection with the disappearance. And to be fair, she may be right. After all, many women, given the opportunity, would change their age downward, just to look younger in the eyes of their loved one and others. Whether this fact may indicate Summer's criminal nature, you decide for yourself. I'll just ask the question, did Joseph McStay know that his wife was actually 14 years older than him? Probably not. Of course, in itself, such a difference in age is not a hindrance to a successful marriage and love. But a lie, no matter how you cover it up, is still a lie. It turns out that Joseph McStay was not such a good citizen. As a licensed real estate agent, he had only recently become involved in the fountain business. And in his time, making transactions on the resale of housing, he was repeatedly complained about by clients, accusing him of financial fraud. And in 1992 and 1999, he appeared in court in cases of debt collection in favor of clients. The sums recovered were small, $5,000, $10,000, and to quiet these cases McStay helped his relatives, paying off the debts. Of course, this fact does not characterize Joseph McStay as a hardened criminal, but clearly casts a shadow on his reputation as a law-abiding American. After adding up all these pros and cons, the San Diego police for a long time continued to insist on the version that, most likely, the McStay family fled to Mexico. But almost 4 years after their disappearance, the case will give such a turn that will completely destroy this version, forcing detectives to completely reconsider all the data. On November 11, 2013, a motorcyclist, whose name has not been released, with the wheel of his steel horse accidentally loosened the soil in the desert, not far from the road leading to the city of Victorville, in San Bernardino County. And what was his surprise when this act revealed the skull of an adult human being? When the police arrived on the scene, they found hastily dug, shallow graves in the desert, one of which contained the remains of 2 adults. The second grave hid the bones of 2 small children. On November 15, after comparing dental records, experts were able to confidently inform the public that the adults who had died were Joseph and Summer McStay. The identification of Johnny and Joseph Jr. could only be completed through DNA tests. Thus, nearly 4 years later, the remains of the missing 4 members of the McStay family were found about 130 kilometers from their own home in Fallbrook. From now on, the police will have to officially declare the fallacy of their version of the McStay's departure to Mexico on February 8, 2010. The case will now take the formulation investigation of the premeditated mass murder of the family of 4. The autopsy reports and their results will not be made public, but the police will be forced to admit that at the time, not listening to the opinion of Detective Troy Dougal, missed an opportunity to investigate the murder on the hot tracks. It should be understood that to date the investigation into the mass murder of the McStay family is still ongoing, which means that information about the time and method of death of the McStays, as well as the evidence found at the site of their burial, is still a mystery to the investigation. But apparently it was this information that prompted the police to arrest the main suspect in the case. A year after the discovery of the remains, on November 5, 2014 will be detained business partner Joseph McStay, already mentioned more than once in this investigation, Ray Charles Merritt. On the same day, he will be charged with the murder of 4 people. As it turned out, Charles Merritt has long walked in the detectives in the main suspects. At one time, to pay attention to him advised the investigation of Joseph McStay's father, Patrick McStay. And at the same time, Merritt, without denying, became the only one of the suspects who voluntarily took a DNA test and passed the polygraph with a positive result. Exactly what the police charge is based on is not yet clear, for that information is being withheld. In official statements, representatives of the investigation department and detectives explained that they have been collecting evidence against Mr. Merritt for many months. All of them are not direct, but circumstantial, but in the overall consideration of their number pulls on the conviction. But what is the known information concerning Charles Merritt? In fact, what was made public can become a basis for suspicion in his address, since it is no secret that a huge part of murders are committed by people close to the victim. In addition, killers often try to actively participate in the investigation during the investigation, which is what Merritt did in his time. First of all, it was the not young Charles who was the last person to see the McStay family alive. Even in the early stages of the investigation, he made no secret of it, saying that on the day of their disappearance he had spent an hour and a half at the Fallbrook house discussing with Joseph an order they had received for a large, $82,000 fountain in Saudi Arabia. The men organized the fountain manufacturing and maintenance firm in 2007, around the same time Summer and Joseph McStay formalized their relationship. On Merritt's shoulders at the company was the function of fabricating water features. As a skilled metalworker and welder, he was responsible for production, while Joseph served as manager, finance, and general manager. Customer relations and financial control of the company rested entirely on the dead man's shoulders, while Merritt considered himself a simple laborer. In his biography, he also had friction with the law, but, unlike Joseph, more significant. Thus, it is known that in 1978, when he was not even 17 years old, he first went to jail on charges of theft of private property. Having served a short time, after 9 years, in 1987 he went to the same place, having already been caught stealing state property. Secondly, again at the instigation of Merritt, Michael McStay got excited when Joseph McStay stopped contacting him on February 4, 2010. In other words, it was Merritt who started the whole fuss about the family's disappearance, claiming that he and his business partner and his closest friend talked on the phone several times a day. And the abrupt disappearance of his business partner immediately put him on edge. When asked why he did not answer the phone call made by Joseph at 8:28 on February 4th, he said that he and his girlfriend were watching a movie and decided not to be distracted by phone calls. It is also curious that in his words, Merritt speaks of Joseph in exceptionally excellent terms, remembering him as a man of crystal honesty, integrity, amazing kindness, and helpfulness. But what the hard evidence Merritt's police are bringing forward is not yet known. According to an official statement from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, the case is now being investigated by another police department. Detectives believe that the murder of the 4 people was clearly planned and carried out with inhuman cruelty. Nor do they doubt the guilt of Merritt, who acted, in their opinion, alone. Their main theory is that the McStays were murdered right in their home in Fallbrook. Afterward, killer Charles Merritt drove the bodies out into the desert where he buried them. He then abandoned the family car at the Mexican border and returned to clean up the blood-splattered house. But only the motive of such a brutal murder remains unknown to the public, because the police flatly refused to make it public. It is likely that this motive may be a disappointment to people who believe the McStay family is sinless. For, just a few days after their remains were found in the desert, a serious scandal erupted in the press. The topic was the revelations of Dave White, who gave an interview to the Daily Mail on November 16, 2013. In it, he told of the McStays' serious financial problems, which could, after all, be the reason for their murder. Initially, for about 5 years, before buying a house in Fallbrook, the McStays lived in another California town, San Clemente. In this town they did not own their own home, but rented a 2-bedroom apartment for which they paid $850 per month. Dave White lived next door to them and moved into their apartment after the McStays purchased a home in Fallbrook. White, 54, said in an interview that it was his understanding that the McStays were consistently late paying rent to their landlord and were on the verge of eviction. Apparently, $850 was an amount beyond this family's means. After the McStays moved out, Mr. White received a written complaint in Joseph McStay's name from his client claiming that he had been defrauded. In his claim, the client wrote that the owner of the fountain company had taken a $14,000 down payment from him to create a fountain that he never built. I also received collection letters from the IRS and numerous unpaid bills. Most of them came as early as when the McStays disappeared. Apparently the senders didn't know about it, said White. It is difficult to comment on this interview, as it has not been confirmed by official authorities. The police and the family of missing Joseph McStay have not yet spoken on the subject. However, if, in the end, it turns out to be true, a reasonable question arises: how could the money-starved McStays pay for the purchase of an expensive house, and even leave a tidy sum of $100,000 in their account? However, we obviously still have a lot to learn about the facts of this case, because only on April 3, 2015, the first hearing was held in court on the charges of Charles Merritt in the murder of 4 members of the McStay family. His lawyer Robert Ponce, known for high-profile murderer defense cases, presented the court with documents proving the serious heart condition of the person under investigation, and the court was forced to postpone the case for 6 weeks. So for now, the investigation into the mysterious death of McStay hangs in the air. When the investigation will be completed, I will complete this story. In the meantime, the continuation of this essay will be the story of the second family, whose fate will be no less mysterious and terrible. Update on the McStay family murder case: as of January 7, 2020, this crime is already considered solved. Charles Merritt has been named as the killer, and prosecutors have asked the court for the death penalty. A hearing on this is scheduled to take place on January 13, 2020. It is known that Merritt went to murder for mercantile reasons. Due to gambling debts, he was in need of money. The released autopsy data on the bodies of the McStay family members showed that all 4 victims were killed with a blunt object, presumably a 1-pound sledgehammer, which was found in the grave with the remains of Summer and her son. Investigators say the victims were tortured before they died. Merritt's trial was repeatedly postponed. The defendant delayed it in every possible way, including constantly changing his lawyers. But his final conviction is imminent. Hopefully, there will be no mercy for him.